con amor, your therapist friend, the podcast that invites you to bring your cafecito or whatever other drink you'd like and join us in a mental health conversation. I'm Sonia Gilfus, LCSW, and my lovely co-host.
Hi, guys, and welcome. My name is Nenia de Leon Figueroa. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and we're really excited to have you here. We're trying a new format. We're really excited to be able to be here. I'm excited to be here with you, Sonia. We're in the same place today.
We are.
Is that crazy?
I'm so excited, but I was like a little nervous because it's live.
It's live, like we're talking to each other.
We're talking to each other, but I think this is going to be so special because I think it gives our listeners, like you guys, right, just a little bit more of an insight into us.
Yes.
And our personalities and just who we are. You'll get to know we continue to be very down to earth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
For the most part, right?
What are we going to talk about today? We have a very special topic. We're talking about anxiety because it's something that a lot of people are really struggling with anxiety right now. So we thought, you talked about, let's talk about anxiety and how we can help our listeners, our communities overcome it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we need to talk about just what is anxiety and what does it look like? Like we talked about physically, what else? Emotionally, and then cognitively. Yeah. So
there's just so many ways that anxiety affects us, right? Affects people in general. And I think sometimes when it happens and when it starts, I've noticed, at least when I'm talking to people, they don't even realize what it is. Like they just think something's wrong with them. And it's like, there's something going on, right? But it's oftentimes like it starts physical, and so people get really scared. And I like the idea of normalizing what's happening to people.
Yeah, let's do that. But I'm gonna grab my tea.
Go for it. I was looking
real quick.
I looked at it earlier.
I know.
I was like, Sonia,
I know you did.
It's the main part of our show.
It's the main part. My beautiful Nenia was so kind to bring me some tea after a long, hard day at work. No, just kidding.
No, but really yes, though. But
for
really,
both of us.
It's such a long, for both of us in different ways.
But right? This feels so nice, Nenia, for me and you to just kind of come together. Yeah. It feels like a little debriefing and then just also sharing our knowledge with, our listeners.
Yeah, this isn't, to be honest with you, I don't know about you, but I like my job, and yeah, sure, it's a lot, but it doesn't always feel like work, right?
At all.
Right. And even this, coming here,
this is nice. Okay. You know how sometimes you have to be alone to recharge yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I need that 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time, I need this kind of stuff to recharge, right?
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree. It's like recharging with people.
Let's talk about the physical symptoms, girl.
Yeah.
Because those are scary.
They are really scary. So I can tell you this much. When I first started getting anxiety, it was definitely a lot of the physical symptoms.
Yeah.
And it was like all of a sudden just getting nervous out of nowhere and getting really hot. Feeling really hot and not even knowing why. I was like, I feel like that's what hot flashes are.
Yeah, it does. It feels that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no.
It's not fun.
No.
You guys may get there later.
It's not fun based on what I've experienced.
You feel very hot.
Yeah, feeling the heat, and then your heart starts beating really fast. So that's the first time that I experienced it, but I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was something I don't know, I'm a teenager, maybe this is part of hormonal changes or something, but it wasn't until later that I realized, oh, that's when it first started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when I remember my first time, because you guys are talking to two anxiety girls. Not just
anxiety party of one.
I mean, it's I think everybody goes through it in some shape or form.
Yeah.
But when I learned about anxiety and that I struggled with it,
Mm-hmm.
girl, it was back when I was in third grade.
Mm.
And I want to share this because my mom would take me to the doctors to have, I had like all kinds of x-rays and nobody could figure out that it was simply anxiety,
Oh, what were you feeling though?
panic attacks. It was my stomach. We hear that
Oh,
often in our
yeah.
Hispanic community. Ay, tengo
Ajá,
nervios.
me duele la panza.
Me duele el estómago, ¿verdad?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so we often, that's one of the physical symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
You feel nauseated, like you have a tummy ache, right?
Yeah, like out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, and you
Mm-hmm.
just don't know what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
so you, obviously, years later, I'm like, oh my God, that's so sad.
Right. Right. Yes. Especially
Like,
in third
come on,
grade.
doctors.
I
I
know.
mean,
But it happens a
it
lot though. I
does.
mean, and that's actually another big part of it is that a lot of people go to the doctor. They go to the hospital because they honestly don't know what's going on with them. They've never experienced this before. And obviously, when you feel something physically wrong, like you're scared that it's going to be
Mhm.
something really bad. And so, what do people do? They go to the hospital, they go to the doctor, and then they get so like bummed out when they find out that it's not like, oh, it's nothing.
Because it feels so invalidating. It's like,
Yeah.
what? Am I crazy? Am I making this up?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think maybe some medical providers, not all, but there's sometimes where there's a little bit like limited awareness on mental health.
Hmm.
And so there might not always be that connection.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is, and it's good for people to know, but there's no explanation.
Right. I think that's a big
Mm-hmm.
piece, right? That psychoeducational piece, which is why we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to start the podcast way
Right.
back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is informing or like educating our listeners on all these physical
Mm-hmm.
symptoms like your stomach, nauseated feelings. Sometimes your hands will get really, really sweaty. Sometimes your heart just starts racing and it
Mm-hmm.
feels like you're about to have a heart attack, even though you've never had a heart attack, right? But
Yeah.
that's what it feels like, and it feels very, very scary. And we could avoid a lot of those additional fears and
Mm-hmm.
the spiraling out that leads to
Mm-hmm.
the cognitive stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's which is actually what ends up happening, right?
Yes?
So you want to explain a little bit what that means? Yeah.
Yeah, so like cognitive is where we're thinking is our thoughts.
Hmm.
Cognitive is just another like fancy word for our thinking, our thoughts. And so if we are having these distorted thoughts, which usually
Yeah.
starts to happen. What happens, Nanya, when you start like your heart starts racing? What's your thought?
Oh my God! Immediately, like, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. Something's going on. Something's
So what
wrong,
is that?
right? Yeah.
Catastrophizing, right? So we get into these very like we call them cognitive
Yeah.
distortions.
Which is just
And
our brain messing with us. That's what it is.
it
Mm-hmm.
is, yeah, it's these distorted thoughts, faulty thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we
Mm-hmm.
need to be aware of. If we're not aware of it, like, oh, and here's the thing, they're automatic.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's like I'm wondering if it's like survival kind of thing because you don't want to wait to find out if it's an issue or not
Yeah.
because especially if it has something to do with your life, our brains are kind of trained to immediately go into that mode of like something's wrong, I need help,
Yeah, I
right?
need to figure it out or I need to
Yeah.
fix it.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and so when you're getting these symptoms, like sometimes it could even be like your hands get numb, your face gets numb, maybe you get like chest pains. Are you kidding me? Like
Oh
how
my
scary
gosh,
is
the
that?
face gets numb, the arms like you
Yeah, so
sorry.
obviously your brain starts playing tricks on you,
Yeah.
you know?
Or you just get so overwhelmed too that you're
Hmm.
like, you know what happens to me?
What?
This
Oh
is
my
so
God.
sad.
Yeah.
This whole swallowing. Remember?
Okay.
I tell you, it's like I feel like I'm choking or I'm out of breath when it's like
Oh,
high or
yeah.
panic attacks and it
Yeah.
was yeah. So again, for some people it's like what is happening to me? Am I choking? Like it
Hmm.
can be very very scary when you don't know, oh it's a physical symptom of anxiety.
Yeah. And so that's something, again, I've seen this so many times when people don't know what's happening to them. And then they go to the doctor. And then what happens to the doctors? They're like, oh, go here. And so I We've gotten a lot of these
So
texts.
many.
It breaks my heart because they come in and they're like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
My doctor just said to come here. I don't know what this is even for.
Yeah.
So, my thing is always don't be afraid to ask your doctors. That's what they're there for, to explain things to you. Like they can take an extra like couple minutes explaining to you why they're referring you to a mental health place, especially when there's so much stigma with our
Yeah.
Latina community, and then there's no understanding of what's happening, and so I think it's important for people to know why they're being referred, because when they come in and they're like, they told me to come in, but I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I promise. I'm like, I know you're not crazy. Like, there's no such thing as crazy.
No,
you
I
know?
know.
So yeah, so when you come in to see us, for example, after you've been referred, like what we're gonna do is ask questions, right? And so I just like to, again, I like to normalize. I like to let people know. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It just means, to be honest with you, like
That part. That's the part I was
I
getting to.
I
Yeah.
sometimes like even tell people, this is gonna sound really wild, but it's actually your body trying to protect you in like this like weird way, and it means that your body's actually working extra like it's extra like hard, and I don't
But
know,
I
like
love that, Nenya, because you're normalizing it for them,
yeah.
right? And that's the thing with that I was saying with our communities. There's such a
Mm-hmm.
stigma, and it's like if I get referred, it automatically means I'm crazy.
Yeah.
No, we have to understand that there's physical symptoms that affect, like our
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, and our thoughts affect our, behavior
Yeah,
and our physical symptoms, and it all affects each other.
it does. And that's another thing. A lot of times when people start experiencing anxiety, then there's like the thoughts, right? Of like something is wrong. Um, and then maybe they find out that it's not a physical thing. It's kind of like a mental thing
Uh-huh.
that's happening, right? And so there's this fear of it happening again.
Mm.
And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck for a while. I know that I did.
Yes, the
Mm-hmm.
cognitive part,
Mm-hmm.
right?
The cognitive part.
Like
Mm-hmm.
the fear of, oh my gosh, this happened before and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen again.
Yeah, right.
And what is that? Those are distortions, though, right? It's like fortune
Mm-hmm.
telling, assuming, jumping to conclusions. And yeah, that doesn't help.
It doesn't. It doesn't help.
So let's talk a little bit about what helps to correct
Mm-hmm.
those cognitive distortions, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really love CBT
Yeah.
to deal with the cognitive distortions. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think that's like some people don't like CBT because they don't believe in like, oh, I don't like to reframe it, or I don't
Yeah.
believe what I'm saying, or I don't believe the affirmations. And I'm like, well, we're gonna find something that you believe
Yeah.
in.
So CBT,
Yes.
like, for people who maybe aren't familiar, it's a
Yeah.
very common type of therapy, right?
Yes.
Where again, like I think you mentioned it earlier, right? We talk about thoughts,
Yes.
how these thoughts affect our behaviors, and sometimes how the behaviors also impact our thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like a little cycle of that.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is break that cycle in a way that's going to be like or like better for us. So it's going to help us like deal with things a little bit better. And so sometimes that does mean like saying,
Yeah.
this thought isn't working for me,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Finding the like the when sometimes like people when they say it's all or nothing, like saying, well, is it, and challenging that thought of, is it all or nothing, or
Yes.
is it as bad as it like seems, right?
Yeah. Is it
Uh-huh.
really going to lead to like the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
Right? It's about challenging our thoughts. You're
Yeah.
correct. That's what cognitive behavioral
That's
therapy is.
so hard. Like,
It is hard.
because you're like playing games with your own mind now
Oh,
at this
but it's
point.
fun, isn't it? No, I'm just kidding. But let me
No,
tell
but
you
really, it is
something.
though. You're right. Yeah.
Nanya, when we get it down, we're literally cognitive behavioral therapy. You're unlearning a bunch of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
negative thinking, negative patterns,
Mm-hmm.
and you are retraining, rewiring your brain for good, healthy thinking.
Right.
So when you practice it and you get the hang of it, oh my goodness, it is so powerful.
It is. It
It's a
really
game
is.
changer.
It is a game changer because you really are
In
like
control
in oh my
of
gosh.
your life.
Yes. And because what is it with anxiety that like the biggest thing is you feel out
You're
of
out of
control.
control, correct?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so CBT helps you gain that back.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you guys look into CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which says
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts affect your behavior and
Mm-hmm.
your feelings. And if you think about it, Nenya, like words are very powerful
They are
because some people
mm-hmm.
don't fully buy into these modalities, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
always like to say, really? Well, how does it feel when you say all these negative things about yourself? You
Mm-hmm.
feel like crap.
You do.
Right? So,
You
the same way, speaking positively is going to also work, but it has to be not fake. It has to be authentic, it has to be genuine. The statement, the affirmation,
do.
something that's
Mm-hmm.
believable and that
Yeah.
feels right to you.
Yeah. Exactly. So actually, one thing that I like to tell myself because again, I've gotten these like insane panic attacks, and they're no fun. But I've learned to kind of remind myself this isn't like if like for example I start feeling the symptoms, right, and I start thinking oh my god this is it, I'm gonna just go downhill from here, right.
Yeah.
I tell myself this is for now, this is not forever.
Yes.
This is for now, not forever.
I love it. One of the things I tell myself is, oh, okay, it's just anxiety. It's
Yeah.
That's what works for me. It's just anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna die. It's not the end of the world. It's gonna calm down. And I give
Yeah.
myself the space. Maybe we should talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
right? Because how do we deal with those physical
Yeah.
symptoms? How?
Okay, for me, so a really good friend of mine, she actually suggested a book for me. It's Untangling Your Anxiety. I think that's what it's called, or
Ooh,
Detangling Your Anxiety. I need to look it up. But it is,
we'll have to post that book,
yes, we
Nenya.
will, because honestly, it's been life changing, especially for the physical symptoms, which is what they deal with in that book the most. And so I learned to essentially just work through the symptoms. So just walk through this and just let them be. And so part of it, you know, they talk about like the retraining your brain, right? And so when you're anxious, what happens is that you start releasing all of this like cortisol and
Yeah.
adrenaline, right? But there's no way to actually like think your way down from the cortisol and stuff. There's
Yeah.
like actually no way to do that. Like it's one way, right? But the way that you actually kind of train your brain to stop releasing
Mm-hmm.
those hormones, which is what gets you into that anxiety mode, right?
Is
Is just being.
allow.
Just allow it to
Yeah.
be. And so, it took a lot for me to just kind of say, "Okay, this is happening. It's
It's
happening.
hard. And you know
It's
what? Sometimes
happening."
it's like you might have to go to the bathroom and just cry or go to your
Yeah.
car and you're just gonna cry and cry
Yeah.
and then it's gone.
And then it's gone. Yeah, or like it's been like a lot about just literally I'm at work and it's just coming sometimes, like it's just I can feel it, and I'm
Yeah.
talking to someone sometimes and I can feel it, and my initial reaction is like I want to run.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here right now.
I'm not even listening to you right now because I'm in fight or flight right now. Like
But I'm
what?
still smiling.
Yeah.
I'm still smiling, everybody. And then it just goes away,
Yeah.
but it did take some time.
And again, I think what makes it hard is when people don't know what's happening. Oh my gosh, can you imagine not knowing? So, you know, there was like a research article I had read, but the simple fact of just being able to identify the
Mm-hmm.
emotion or what's happening to you
Mm-hmm.
will kind of instantly already bring it down
Yeah.
several notches because it's not in the unknown. At least you know what's happening, so you can
Yeah.
kind of do something about it.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
because again, that's what the scary part is
So
not
you
knowing.
talked about doing that, like letting it, feeling it.
Yeah.
Now, there are some times when we're not in a full blown panic attack and we're just stressed and have high anxiety. One of the things that I found that works for me, Nenya, is like the breathing. And I'm like huge on I inhale through my nose 4 seconds, and it's like, hold it for 2 seconds and then exhale out my mouth for 8 seconds. So, and then I'm like, drop those shoulders because, and I always tell my patients, I'm like, you're literally in that long exhale, you're activating the parasympathetic part of the brain that says, hey, it's okay, chill. It's really not, you're going to be okay. And I think it's, for me, it's really helpful in managing my physical symptoms. The other one is the progressive muscle relaxation.
Oh yeah.
Because what happens? Like we get tense, girl.
Well, you do get tense,
right? We get so like tense, and so progressive muscle relaxation for you guys, it's where you really just kind of tighten up every muscle of your body.
Yeah.
And then you release it. Yeah. Remember, I used to do it with the kiddos at
you know what I used to call it?
What?
I used to call it spaghetti body.
Okay, you know what I used to call it?
What?
I used to call it Tin Man Ragdoll.
Oh yeah, because you're a tin man.
Because you're a tin man and you're so stiff and you're really, you're tightening everything up, and then ragdoll, it's like you're like a doll and you just let yourself go, right? Because it feels so good when you are able to tighten everything up and then completely just let go. And then you do the little breathing exercise, and you're like in a different space.
For the breathing, I would tell my kiddos, do lion's breaths, and this is good for like when they're angry and when they were like anxious too.
Okay.
And the lion's breath is like you take a deep breath in and then you let it out, but with your tongue out, like and then they would like
show me.
No.
Show me,
I was worried you were gonna tell me to show you. I'm not showing.
You read my mind, girl.
I was like, oh, as I'm talking, in my head, I'm like, she's gonna ask me to do it. I already know she's gonna ask me. Absolutely not.
Okay. So it's like and then you exhale. No, I'm not gonna do it.
and then your tongue out, because it kind of like, I saw that actually in a yoga video where she the yoga instructor, she does that, and it's like a way to just kind of really release and let go.
And are you also doing like a roar?
You can, I guess. You want to roar?
I don't know. Like open up your throat chakra a little bit.
There we go. I mean, you probably can, right?
Yeah.
Like stimulate the vagus nerve.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Which is really good. Also, sometimes when I like I'm done for the day and I'm feeling really that feeling like overwhelmed, I will get in my car, turn up the music.
Oh yeah.
And sing at the top of my lungs.
Oh yes.
Like
I love those times.
Yes. Because and then it just feels so good by the time I get home. I'm like, okay, I'm set. You know? I don't know.
Yeah. What do you listen to?
Oh girl, it's so
it depends on the mood, I bet.
It really does. It really does depend on the mood.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it's a little bit of T Swift. Sometimes it's a little bit of Chapel Roan.
Oh yes.
So much fun.
Yes. Sometimes it's a little gangster rap.
Sometimes that reminds me of Tina.
Oh my gosh, Tina. Hey Tina.
Hi Tina. Yeah, that reminds me of Tina.
Well, that's so fun.
I know.
Tina used to send me videos of like Snoop Dogg videos, and so fun. I miss her. But,
yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. Like doing all those things help us. So what is the other one? Physical. We talked about some physical symptoms and the cognitive symptoms. Let's talk about the emotional piece. I think that's huge. That's where a lot of the deeper therapy maybe comes in, because what are some of those emotional symptoms that we see with anxiety?
Yeah.
Like,
you got me there.
Huh?
You got me there.
I mean, that's what we talked about, right? Like physical,
Hmm.
emotional, cognitive. But I think it's like there's a lot of people, a lot of us who are we we respond they're trauma responses, right?
Yeah.
We are like reenacting our childhood traumas
Hmm.
when we're not
Hmm.
healed.
Hmm.
And so sometimes even now, like if something happens and somebody triggers me, right? It might be because I was triggered from when I was like a younger child and I still haven't dealt with the emotional stuff from back then that I haven't healed. And now I'm being triggered, but it's like really, really out of proportion, maybe for
Hmm.
me, because I'm not just responding to that, I'm responding to a lot of the other emotional stuff that I had not really dealt with before.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and I think it's important to be aware of that because so many of us are walking around responding and in its trauma responses and we're not even aware of it.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Um, and I think again, this is something that comes out of nowhere sometimes because we're very good at just kind of tucking it away, hiding it away,
Yeah.
right? It's just gonna be back there. It doesn't matter. Let's just put it in the back, put it in the backpack, just keep walking, keep trekking through life, and
Yep.
then when you least expect it, something happens. Yeah,
That
and
reminds you of it. Because what does the universe do? It's going to
mhm.
teach us until we learn whatever sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah, honestly, and then when something does happen to us, it's very rooted in like our bodies, and it's so connected. Like our brains create these like neural connections,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on the trauma, right, on what happened, they're so strong, especially if it includes the physical,
Abuse, yeah.
emotional,
Uh-huh.
if it includes smell, taste, all of that. Like, are you kidding? Like, if it all of that together is so strong that when it comes up, even even if it kind of looks like it, not even really like fully, your brain is trained to like say, "Oh, danger."
That's the amygdala, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just remember like learning about like the neural connections that
Yes.
our brains make even when we're just learning how to read even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our brain can like learn like the patterns
Mm-hmm.
kind of, and when these patterns kind of fit, almost like a little like those little toys that kids have with
Yes.
the
Those
squares and the
balls and like the star and it has to fit.
yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
so even if it in this case, even if it sort of kind of fits, your brain like fires
Yeah.
and does what it needs to do.
Yes.
And so that's what happens with trauma, that it's so sensitive.
It's protective also,
It
but it
is.
doesn't always get it correct.
It
That's the thing
doesn't.
with the amygdala,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like it's going to make us aware to
Mhm.
protect us, but it doesn't always, it's not always accurate, you know? Like if
No.
I go outside, I'm like, oh my God, and it's not really a snake, it's the water hose.
Yeah, yeah, because it doesn't have time to do that.
Right.
Its main purpose is to make sure that you're safe.
Exactly. And so it's going to make sure it
Yeah.
does whatever to make you safe.
Right. It's a very primal part of your brain,
Yeah.
very helpful part of your brain, but also tricky part of your brain. Yeah, and
Because
so
it triggers all these other things.
yeah.
So, how do we deal with that instead of ignoring it? Because we can't keep ignoring it because it'll continue to show up because the body keeps the
Hmm.
score.
Right. So I want to let you talk about the way brain spotting works on that.
Okay,
Okay, because I think that's a very different kind of therapy as opposed to talk therapy.
it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Because with talk therapy, what you're doing is again talking about like these thoughts, these memories, right? And you're kind of making them go from being super triggering to becoming neutral,
Hmm.
right? And so how do you do this? You talk through it, right? You learn how to ground during your discussions about it, right?
Hmm.
I actually had a therapist who even told me that she, in some of her work, there were times when her clients didn't even talk
Yes.
because maybe like what they were saying or the trauma that they had was super like confidential. Okay. And so what she would do is even just say, okay, just think about it. And
That's what I
then
do a lot in my brain
right.
spotting sessions.
And then visualize, and when she'd notice the changes, she'd make them ground. And
Yes.
then and go from there. And so it's a lot of like trigger, 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 bring down. Trigger, trigger,
Yes.
trigger, bring down until it becomes neutral. Right?
Sorry, you're speaking my language.
No, I mean this is like it's amazing, right? It takes work. It
It
takes
is
time.
amazing. It
Mhm.
takes work. And I think that's why I love these body brain based type of therapies
Mhm.
because I think for a long time it was ignored like the body
It was. It
for
was.
many, many years. And I think finally now it's like we're starting to catch up. It's not just emotional, psychological, right? The
Mhm.
cognitive stuff. It's the body really does hold on to that trauma.
It
So if
does.
we went through something when we were younger, like sexual abuse, what happens a lot of the times is like we go into fight or flight or freeze or
Mhm.
fawn, right? And so guess what happens? Our body remembers.
Yeah.
Like when I had my third child, sorry, random thought. It's
Mhm.
like the doctor's like, oh, don't know. When I went to have my second child, the doctor was like, oh, don't worry, your body remembers. You'll be fine. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, okay.
Well, good.
Well, good. My body knows what to do. So again, the body remembers the trauma. There's been times where I've had brain spotting sessions, and if we're processing some deep sexual trauma,
Mhm.
and if the person was, beat in certain areas of their body, guess where the activation in their body comes up?
Mhm. There.
Right there.
Yeah.
It's
So
amazing. It's sad, it's beautiful, but it's very powerful because with brain spotting we're able to, let's say there's a constant trigger that keeps coming up,
mhm.
right? A mistrust because you had narcissistic parents that always abused you,
Mhm.
and so now you just have a lot of mistrust.
Mhm.
So we would brain spot on mistrust, and I would get you to talk about like the
Mhm.
mistrust, what happens, and we call that front
Yeah.
loading because we're talking. It's just the cognitive, the verbal part,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because I'm wanting to activate you to get the physical symptoms we talked about
Mhm.
activated in your
Mhm.
body.
Mhm.
Why? Because it has to get out.
Okay.
And so that's what brain
Yeah.
spotting does, right? It's
Right.
working with your brain, the thoughts, the memories, but also your body. So once I get you activated to like an
Mhm.
8, right? I'm able to get my little pointer and I attune myself to you and I use your vision, your field of vision.
Mhm.
And then now I'm able to like move it along. Because when we're working with your eye gaze, we're working directly with the brain. Isn't
That's
that crazy?
that's what I really like am mind blown by
Oh,
because
it's
of that. Like how does that work?
well. Well,
Yeah.
like all the okay. So it's able to, it's working with the brain, right? So with
Mhm.
your eye vision, your eyes, your body, as I'm moving the pointer, it remembers, right? And your body will speak to me.
Mhm.
Okay. Because remember, you talked about those neural connections.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is sparking up a memory, right? And so we'll stay there.
Mhm.
And then what it does, it's able to access because we'll stay in that point, right? Once I find it on the y-axis and the
Mhm.
x-axis, and we'll stay on that point, and it starts kind of opening up, kind of like a portal, right? That opens up
Yeah.
in your brain that particular memory. It's like a key that unlocks that door to that particular healing that you have not been able to have access to before
Mhm. Mhm.
for whatever reason,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so deeply in there.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I'm wondering, like, is it in, like, do you see it in the eyes? Like, do the eyes do something
The
specific?
eyes do something, but it's
Mhm.
also the body. Like, and sometimes if you are very attuned, I can also, it's like right here, like my hand will literally be like right here, stop, stop. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm stopping here. But I guess that's if you have also like intuitive gifts, which a lot of therapists do.
I think that's why a lot of
I think
therapists are
we,
drawn to it.
yes, right?
Yeah.
Here's the other thing about brain spotting I've discovered. It actually enhances a lot of your gifts, your spiritual gifts,
Yeah.
if you have that, which is really beautiful. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've noticed that
Yeah.
with you.
Yes. She's brain spotted me many times.
My other therapist friends that I have also, it's been very beautiful
Mhm.
and kind of life changing for me too. So what that's one piece, but really you don't have to have that. You can just be trained because the body will naturally speak
Right. Hmm.
to you. So what is it? It can be your eyes will be like,
Hmm.
right? I've had patients where like their body, their mind is just dying to get this out.
Hmm.
And as soon as I move it, it's the eyes will be like, and they didn't even realize it. Sometimes they will feel it too.
Hmm.
It's like, oh gosh, I felt really activated when you moved it to that point, or oh, I feel really relaxed when you move it to this point.
Hmm.
So it's amazing. What is the motto of brain spotting? It's where you look affects how you feel,
Okay.
which is another kind of cool technique. Like when you're really anxious, that's one of the things I do, like these little secret techniques,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, if I look there, I can feel, I feel neutral. If I look here, let me tap in. How do I feel? Oh, I feel a lot more relaxed. If I look there, oh, that I am even more relaxed over there.
Yeah.
So it's really powerful what you can do by
I've
just,
actually done that.
yeah, girl,
So,
it works. It's amazing.
it does. There's times when I think I've mentioned this to you before, where I'm like just kind of sitting there and I look in a certain place and I start to feel like almost like, oh, this is weird. Like, what is going on? And so, a trick that my therapist actually showed me was looking like starting to balance it out back and forth.
Yeah.
And so, it's going to seem
That
weird.
happens with EMDR.
It is, yeah, very
Mm-hmm.
similar. Or actually, that's what you do with the MDR, right? To balance it, kind of
Yeah.
like. Hmm.
Check this out. With brain spotting, you know how you talked about like the very confidential stuff? Because sometimes once we're in it and I catch that brain spot, I'm there with my pointer and, you know, it's, I call it, all right, we're in the room. I call it, right? Like
Yeah,
we're in
yeah.
here, like we're in this space. And it starts just kind of going with one thought to another thought to another thought. And the thing with brain spotting is the body and the brain have a natural ability to heal itself. So
Hmm.
what's really special is that it's like my patients will say, "Oh, this word is coming up."
Yeah, yeah,
Right? I mean, you've
yeah. I've
experienced it.
had that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like this word fear is coming up and I see it and it's like, okay, focus on that word fear, be very curious about it and see what your brain shows you next.
Hmm.
And it's beautiful because you don't have to force anything. It just starts, we get into this kind of flow, like this, the stream of thought, that just keeps going more into the trauma that had been blocked that you had
Hmm.
not been aware of.
Yeah.
And then what happens? You're just more aware afterwards, right? You're like,
Right. Hmm.
oh, how did I not realize that before? Now it's very clear.
Yeah.
So what else happens during brain spotting is we're not just working with like the brain and like removing some of these toxic thoughts or memories,
Hmm.
but we're also energetically
Yeah.
checking in because what do I do with you?
Yeah.
How activated are you on a scale from 0
Yeah.
to 10, 10 being the highest? I bet my
Yeah.
patients get sick of hearing that.
But it's part of it,
It's
right?
part of
Yeah.
it. It's
Hmm.
part of the checking in with the body and getting our patients also like very connected with, well, where is it? Oh God,
Hmm.
it feels like a 8. Where? Right here. Usually a lot. And then with brain spotting, you'll notice it'll go really high
Hmm.
and then it'll go really low, almost to like a meditative state.
Yeah.
Because what has happened is whatever energetic trauma was stuck there in the body,
Hmm.
it's made its way out.
Yeah.
There's blockages.
Yeah. And that's really cool because it's true. A lot of the anxiety that we experience, for example, when it's trauma based, especially,
Yeah.
it's it's stuck. It's stuck energy,
Yes,
right? And so, I mean, brain spotting is a great way of relieving that or releasing that energy,
it is.
which I love.
Oh,
Thank you
girl.
so much for explaining
You're
that.
so welcome. I always feel
Yeah.
like I'm all over the place with brain spotting because it's like you have to try it. It's very difficult to explain
Hmm.
the power of it really. When I'm brain spotting and when some of my patients say, "Oh, this is weird," I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this is going to be a good session."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know we got somewhere deep. How does that help the emotional symptoms, right? Like those triggers, is that all of a sudden now, like if we brain spotted on what, on fear or on mistrust, now all of a sudden your brain just thinks and views it very differently,
Hmm.
right? And so a situation that would have triggered you
Hmm.
a lot
Hmm.
before, now you're like, oh, wait, okay, I know where it's coming from. It's not really coming from you. It's
Hmm.
from back then. It's not that big. Oh, and it's gone,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
right?
amazing. Yeah. It's
It's
pretty
beautiful.
amazing. So I think
So everybody
anybody,
get brain spotted.
I was gonna say anybody who can, they should. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's another really great way. Again, there's so many different therapies that can be used. Some of them a little more intensive, I think. I think also like being prepared for it is another big one, right?
Yes, being prepared for.
Yeah.
Are you talking about like being prepared for the actual brain spotting session or for what comes after?
I
Or,
think for I think for the work that comes with it, because
yes,
um,
because you're gonna, because stuff is gonna come up.
yeah. And so I think a lot of times people want to heal, but they don't really realize that like it does take a lot,
Yeah.
and it takes it coming out to heal sometimes.
Yeah, you know what I tell my patients about that, Nenya? Because I think it can be very scary for them. Like, oh my gosh, like I want to feel it. It's like
Yeah.
I want to go get a piercing and it's gonna freaking hurt, and I have to go through. I
You're
don't know why
right.
that came up, but
Yeah, no, but it's true. It's kind of
yes,
like that,
kind of like that, right? Maybe
Yeah.
because I only had piercings in my life and now,
Yeah.
but I always say, listen, healing is good. Yeah, you're gonna
Hmm.
cry. It's gonna be a little bit challenging, but it's part of it. And here's the thing: you already went through the worst.
That's
That's what I
true.
always say. Like whatever it is that we're healing, you've already been there. You've already
Hmm.
done that. You survived it, so it's gonna be okay,
Yeah, that's true, right?
right?
I mean, it's happened. You've been there already, and you came out of it. And so now we're just trying to uncover it to make sure that it kind of just
Comes out.
comes out,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So what it takes,
Dang.
though, that's what it takes. It takes a lot.
What a
Just
good conversation, Nenya. I love this.
I know. And so, I mean, everyone like I like to just kind of randomly throw out some good coping skills. If maybe you're waiting for a therapist or you're hesitant about it, but you want to try something, one, there's a lot of good CBT books out there.
Yes.
Okay, like workbooks and everything that you can do on your own. If you want to, if you want to start there, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, but also, start, gaining these coping skills, right? So the deep breathing that you said, Sonia, is really great.
Yeah. Those are very basic ones. Like
Yeah.
go get educated, read up on cognitive distortions,
Yeah.
look at them and see which ones do I identify with so you could start being aware.
Uh
Because
huh.
that's the first step, right? Like
Right.
awareness.
There's journals out there too
Oh, there's so much stuff
that kind
out
of
there
guide
now.
you. It's so great,
Yeah.
right? And then of course, like the what we talked about, the progressive muscle relaxation
For the physical
for
stuff.
the physical stuff.
Hmm.
Again, singing, dancing. A lot of times the
Oh my
dancing,
God,
right?
dancing. I love dancing and it's
Yeah.
so fun and it keeps you in shape.
Yeah.
Going to the gym,
Going to the gym and moving.
moving, working out, hiking, not so much for like the weight, right? But really
Mm-hmm.
because it's producing endorphins that make
Yeah.
you just feel really good.
And it moves the energy out
Yes.
also. Like it helps your body really just start releasing the energy.
Stretching. If you don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like Sometimes we're not motivated and we're
Mhm.
very, very tired.
Mhm.
Stretch. I'm in
Yeah.
my bed and I'm like stretching, like our hips hold in a lot of
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
So, guys, you guys have to start doing like some hip
Yeah. I was
movements.
like hula hooping slowly, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
no,
what?
but
It's
it's
like
true.
moving it,
Mhm.
moving that energy that's been
Yeah.
stuck.
The way I see it is like when you're stretching, right? When you're feeling like that, like little, like, it feels really good. It's like
Yes.
it's releasing something,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's why that's helpful too. Again, just the meditation, if it's something that's okay for some people, it's not. For
Yeah.
some people, meditating is actually activating. And so doing a different form of meditation, whether it's as you're moving or something,
Hmm.
or just repeating mantras or affirmations as
That's
well.
a really good one.
Hmm.
Like the positive self talk,
Hmm.
those
Yeah,
affirmations for anxiety. And
right.
different ones are going to work different for different people. Like what
Yeah.
affirmation works for you may not work for me.
No, so you
That's the
have to
key.
create your own, right?
Yeah.
And then there's also like tapping like your hands back and forth,
Oh,
right?
yes, Nanya, that's such a
Hmm.
powerful one. You guys look up tapping. There's different protocols. There's
Hmm.
even tapping for migraines,
Yeah.
and there's tapping for like the anxiety. And I think it's like there's different protocols.
Hmm.
I
There
think I got
are.
trained in it, but I don't remember. But if you look it up, I'm telling you, it'll be like on
Oh yeah,
YouTube,
it's
anywhere.
everywhere. Yeah,
Guys, they work.
they do
You
work.
start tapping, and
Hmm.
after like the second round, it's like, oh,
Yeah, I
where
think it's
did it
called
go?
the emotional freedom technique,
Yes.
right?
EFT.
EFT. Hmm.
EFT, girl. Yes, there you
Yes,
go.
and so that works as well as
Mhm.
bilateral stimulation.
Okay, bilateral stimulation. So, one of the things I do with brain spotting
Hmm.
afterwards, I always, I'll say like listen to
Hmm.
bilateral music for the next 3 days because it'll continue. It's like a lubricant for your brain
Hmm.
and it stimulates it. So it gets both hemispheres of the brain going where
Hmm.
it's and so it's going to expand
Yeah,
your consciousness, your thinking,
yeah,
be able to tap into different parts of your brain.
right. And YouTube has so many like
So many.
different,
Yeah.
like they have like hours long.
They do. They have
Hmm.
like bilateral joy,
Yeah,
bilateral healing, bilateral focus for my ADHD
it
people
happens. I
out
mean,
there,
and it helps.
It helps.
Yeah,
It's so helpful for sleep. A lot of my patients are like, oh, I sleep with it.
yeah, for sleep as well.
Hmm.
So
So,
yeah,
yeah, that's another thing that helps. What else? There's,
so many different things. So I mean, look for what works for you,
hmm,
right?
hmm,
And I mean, just give it a try. And of course, always remember going to therapy is for everyone. I think
yeah,
everyone
because
should go to therapy.
sometimes, we need that that second pair of eyes and
Hmm.
ears to really give us a new perspective,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Because sometimes we get so stuck in our own heads. And then if we suffer from depression and anxiety, it just exacerbates the symptoms
Yeah.
more. And it's good to bounce it off of other people.
Yeah. And then just getting that support too.
Hmm.
Feeling support, especially when you can't feel like you can't talk to other people about it.
Let's, before we close,
Hmm.
um, I think I want to give like a quick word on medication for
Yes.
anxiety because, all right, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
There's a stigma on mental
Oh,
health, but let
always.
me say
Yeah.
something, okay? And there's holistic care, and I'm all about holistic
Hmm.
care too. But there's a stigma on medication for anxiety and depression,
Hmm.
and that needs to stop because some people need it.
Yeah.
I may not need it, but she may need it,
Hmm.
and when there's a stigma going on, it affects people and it keeps
Yeah.
them from getting proper treatment.
Right.
And it pisses me off.
Yes. Yes, I tell people if your brain ain't making it, store bought is fine. Okay.
Exactly.
I
Dude,
mean,
get a
just
vitamin, take a pill. You know
yeah.
what's crazy where there's
Yeah.
people and there's the stigma, right?
Hmm.
And then sometimes in our community, the machismo,
Yeah.
where it's like, no, I cannot take medication because, no, I'm not crazy. But they're struggling and they're self medicating with like a bottle of tequila or a 12-pack of alcohol a day. And it's like, wait a minute, come on. So medicine or like a whole thing of tequila.
Right. Like I.
Why? Because of a stigma? Because people put us
Mhm.
down? Because then they're going to say
Mhm.
we're crazy because of pride? Oh, come on.
Right. No, I agree completely. And so, I mean, if a lot of times, again, our brains aren't making it,
Mm-hmm.
in this world, like in where we live, like
Yeah,
what we do, sometimes our brains just aren't producing what they need, and that happens. And so it's okay to
it
get
is.
to get that.
It's okay. Somebody may have had like a history of like substance abuse and it affected their brain differently.
Yeah.
And maybe now they may need some
Yeah.
assistance. I think we don't judge the person who goes in for like broken bones
We don't. No one.
and
Everyone's
has
like,
to
yeah, they
take
should go, right?
medication or
Yeah.
for their diabetes and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's like, yeah, I just encourage everyone to be very mindful. That's fine. Like I'm not a medication pusher either. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
Right.
am
Right.
not at
Yeah.
all. I'm all about holistic brain spotting, all
Yeah.
of that. But there are some people who need medication and it's very, very
Hmm.
helpful. So let's just be kind and respectful of what everybody needs because everybody
Hmm.
needs something different,
Agreed. And
right?
so if you need it, please
Take it.
go
And
take
if
it.
you don't, like more power to you, but don't make other people feel bad about it.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Let's encourage.
With love.
With lots of love. It's a big
Yeah.
one for us. But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having tea with me. Did it remind you of Carl Jung again?
It did. You know what this reminds me of?
What?
Mm. It reminds me of when we worked together
Oh my
and I
gosh.
used to go knock on your door or
Yeah.
you would knock on mine and we'd
Sit
have
there and
our
have
little
our
sessions and
coffee
our
and
conversations. This is so
yeah.
lovely, Nanya.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening and watching now.
Yeah.
We're really excited to keep going with this. And so let us know if this is something you enjoy. And until next time, con mucho amor, your therapist friend, Nania, and my therapist friend.
Sonia. Till next time. Bye,
Bye.
guys.